Hey everyone, Damien here. Poor Roby is off soul searching in the mountains, so I'm stepping up to help our buddy with this one here today. So, the Legion Go 2, let's talk about it. I know that there are some of you who aren't too surprised that we're making this video because we did make a comment or two about the Legion Go 2 and we had a few critiques. And for every one of those critiques, you guys had a thing or 12 to say about them. And listen, I don't say that to be dismissive of your comments. We actually read every single one of them. They're super helpful for us, and we ask a lot of critical questions internally when those questions and comments come in. So on top of revisiting our initial critique and sharing some new insights, in a lot of ways, what we're doing with this video is to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and for trusting that we'd actually listen to what you say and take those things into consideration. We may not always be perfect at it, and things can change over time, but growth is super cool, and I love when we have the opportunity to do it. So it's a win all the way around to revisit the Legion Go 2, which is exactly what we're going to do today. With all that in mind, what was the catalyst that brought us back? When we were recording our Handheld Buyers guide, the Xbox full screen experience was just starting to roll out to handhelds outside of the Asus ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally X. With how absolutely game-changing that was for navigating the Windows environment compared to things like the Legion Space app, we had to give the win to the Xbox Ally X for the out-of-box ease-of-use experience, especially since this guy has a dedicated Xbox button right there. And that button gives instant access to everything, regardless of the gaming platform. But that's where you guys stepped in and said, you know you can map an Xbox button, right? You know, we did think of that. We even tried it, and at the time it wasn't exactly a one-to-one experience. But excuses are like armpits. Everyone has a couple, and they typically stink without the proper care. So I'm not gonna waver on any stink at you and just own the critique. We could have done a more thorough job showing what we did, how it worked or didn't at the time, and showcases the differences side by side. I wish that we could have shown you what happened when we tried to map it before, but because of the way it was set up at the time, it just pulled up the Windows game bar. But I do want to take you inside the device to show you how to set it up for yourself. Okay, so I want to show you how to add an Xbox button to the Legion Go 2, because this was actually one of the things that helped us change our mind a bit about this device, because it wasn't something that I believe you could do in the original Legion Go software. So what we're going to do is we're going to press the Legion button up in the upper left hand corner here, and that's going to bring us into Legion space, and we're going to go over to controls. And once we're in controls, we can go into the button mapping setting here, and then we scroll down to function keys, or function shortcuts, I'm sorry. And then in here, you'll see they added an Xbox button. They added an actual feature in here for the Xbox button. So right now we have this mapped to M1, which is right here on the shoulder. I'll talk about some problems that we have with that a little later, but Lenovo actually made this really easy to do now. So for our device, we mapped the Xbox button to one of the extra triggers. And you know what? It's functional enough. Preferentially, it's not quite as convenient as having the button on the face of the device, and sometimes we accidentally bump it while in game. But it does work. So between the ability to establish an Xbox button and a more refined Xbox full screen experience, two of our biggest hangups with the Legion Go 2, they kind of disappeared. And that got us thinking, if those things changed, what else do we need to rethink? Let's talk about the display next, because this is one of the areas we were a bit torn on. On one hand, there is a little bit of misinformation on the Legion Go 2's display resolution if you're looking at stores like Best Buy. On their site, you'll see terms like 2K OLED thrown around. And while this is an OLED, and it's a beautiful one at that, it does not have a 2K resolution. The original Legion Go did, but Lenovo scaled this one back to 1920 by 1200 or 1200p. And you know what? I'm okay with 1200p over 2K. For comparison, this aspect ratio is slightly taller than the ROG Ally family, which has some pros and cons. On one hand, you have more screen space to work with. On the other hand, rendering those extra rows of pixels can have an impact on game performance if you're playing GPU-heavy titles, but we'll talk about that in a minute. What I want to talk about now is the OLED. Measuring in at 8.8 inches, the Legion Go 2 has the biggest display of any handheld on the market to date. And that extra size actually alleviates one of the issues that we brought up in our review of the ROG Xbox Ally X. With nearly 2 extra inches of screen real estate, text is a lot easier to read, and that changes what people like me with aging eyes can play on a handheld like this. Now, this is where I asked Justin in his emotional haze if having a display like this on the Legion Go 2 kept him from reaching for his X-Real glasses. And his answer was, it depends. If he's on a long flight and wants a massive display, then yes, he still reaches for them. But they're less of a necessity when he wants to play games with smaller text with the Legion Go 2, because again, the screen is bigger and it's OLED and it's just so freaking pretty. So the AR glasses aren't entirely out of the picture, but not as necessary. And I'm not surprised by his answer because we did bring this up in our Handheld Buyers guide. Robey was so amped up about this device because of the screen. And as it turns out, it's one of the things that made us want to revisit our initial critique. Now, we could talk about this screen forever because we love OLEDs around here, but the big question is whether the insides of this thing can keep up with the screen. As a recap, the Legion Go 2 is using AMD's Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip, not to be confused with the Ryzen AI Z2 Extreme chip that the Xbox Ally X is using. What's the difference? The AI version has an NPU, the non-AI version, like the chip in the Legion Go 2, does not. Back to the chip, we're looking at an 8-core, 16-thread CPU with 16 RDNA 3.5 cores. As for the RAM though, which is shared between the CPU and GPU cores, that's another story. The model we're using has 32 gigabytes of memory, which is great for keeping our GPU and CPU fed. Like the Xbox Ally X, this provides enough headroom to adjust how much RAM is being allocated for system memory and how much is being used for VRAM. You can adjust this amount even on the 16 gigabyte version, but you are a bit more restricted with a smaller memory pool. Now, for indie titles and older games, this isn't an issue, but if you're trying to play more cinematic titles like 007 First Light, you're gonna want all the help that you can get, so going with the 32 gigabyte model is probably your play. As far as the testing performance goes, we saw solid numbers out of the Legion Go 2, but as I mentioned earlier, there's a bit of a performance hit that this thing is going to take rendering those extra pixels from that extra aspect ratio. If you want the breakdown of performance numbers, you should check out our Handheld Buyers guide, where we talk about that in more in depth. But there's a side of performance that we didn't cover in our other videos, and that's battery performance. Understand that battery life is going to depend on a lot of factors: your screen brightness, the games you're playing, whether or not you're using Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. All of that is going to have an impact on how much life that you can squeeze out of the Legion Go 2. In our experience, we got around 2 hours of play while running AAA titles, but saw closer to 4+ hours of battery life while playing indies like Mina the Hollower, which I've been playing and thoroughly enjoying lately. So, in other words, your mileage is definitely going to vary depending on the games that you play and how you actually use your device. All this brings us back to revisiting the tactile experience of using the Legion Go 2. Because a lot of this is going to be really subjective, I have a piece of advice for you. If you are considering a handheld, this is where I'd recommend that you go into a store and get your hands on one if possible. Because what's comfortable for me may not be the same thing that's comfortable for you. For us, the larger handhelds have a nicer feel to them, and the Legion Go 2 is no exception. I still think that the Steam Deck and the Xbox Allies feel more home to me and to Robey, but the offset thumbsticks feel responsive. The ergonomic grips do feel good in the hand, and the overall construction feels solid. However, at a little over 2 pounds or 0.92 kilograms, this is one of the heaviest handhelds on the market. But Lenovo actually has a workaround. For those long stretches where you want to use this, the Legion Go 2 has controllers that detach from the display and can be used wirelessly. And this is actually something that I really enjoyed. during my time with the OG Legion Go and the Legion Go 2. If you can't tell, I am not a small guy, so being able to detach the controllers and use the built-in kickstand on the display made the in-flight experience of using a handheld so much better for me and for my seatmates. Like, there was no throwing elbows. There is also what Lenovo calls FPS mode. This converts the right controller into a mouse. As the name implies, this mode is good for FPS titles where quick reaction time and precision matter. But if you need more precision than the thumbstick offers, but you aren't quite ready to commit to FPS mode, there is a touchpad as well. And speaking of that touchpad, I had one issue, and really, it's a carbon-based issue between the seat back and the device. It's purely a user error, but it's still worth talking about. If you're playing a game like Diablo 4 or Baldur's Gate 3 that changes the interface if you're switching back and forth from keyboard and mouse to controller, you're going to want to turn off the touchpad. I may have had a few mishaps while playing Baldur's Gate 3 that may have resulted in throwing Shadowheart into a fire more than once, but I can neither confirm nor deny how many of those times were intentional. Well, this was a bit annoying at first. We did discover that you could turn off the touchpad in the settings, but since this came up as we were revisiting this device, it was worth a mention. And this moment was when it really hit us. The biggest hallmark and challenge of the Legion Go 2 is choice. This is where users are either going to be frustrated or overwhelmed by having to undo choices made for them out of the box, or feel liberated by the possibilities that take them beyond the initial setup. Understand, this is not a critique, it's an observation. Remember, we never hated this device. We actually wanted to love it in the onset. But when we first looked at it, some of the options that made this more usable today were not available during time of testing. But with Xbox full screen experience integrations and now SteamOS support, we're really glad that we bought this unit to have on hand for comparison and to take with us when we travel. Speaking of buying the Legion Go 2, we have to talk about pricing because that situation has not gotten any better. At the time of recording this video, the model that we have right here jumped by $500, making it $2,000 to buy new. You can get into the 16GB version for around $1,500, but that version's price has jumped as well, alongside with the formerly cost-conscious Legion Go S handhelds too. Unfortunately, Lenovo isn't the only company experiencing price hikes. MSI is launching the new Claw for around $1,800, and we're still waiting to hear about the price for the new ROG Ally X20, but I guarantee you it will not be cheap. I know that we said this in our Xbox Ally X video, but at these prices, you really need to ask yourself whether or not a handheld is a smart play for you. At $2,000, you have a lot of options for gaming on the go with competitive handhelds like the Xbox Ally X and with gaming laptops too. Obviously, you know your financial situation and your mobile gaming needs better than we do, so you need to determine what's the best play for you. We just want to give you a few tools to be able to make the most informed decision that you can. So let's bring all of this together. What did we learn? Were we actually wrong about the Legion Go 2? Initially, no. While the physical aspects like the screen, the build quality were excellent out of the box, the experience with the interface just wasn't our favorite. And no matter how good something looks or feels and how many features it has, if a device is frustrating to use, it's not going to get used. However, with the improvements Lenovo has made to the Legion Go 2 over time, the addition of support for the Xbox full screen experience and SteamOS, and the ability to map an Xbox button that actually interacts with that interface, our opinions have changed. So in that respect, yes, we were absolutely wrong, but new information or updates can do that. Now, when we look at value per dollar, we're still convinced that there are better handheld options on the table. Although, you might feel differently if the convenience of having things like detachable controllers, a larger display, and OLED are worth the premium to you. But honestly, I've seen Roby take this handheld with him more often now that those updates have hit. So aside from the quality of life things we mentioned, the bigger, brighter OLED screen makes it an easy choice for a broader range of titles, which has made Roby feel a whole lot better about this purchase. At least That's what I got through his soul-searching mumbling. If those features are non-negotiables to you and you can deal with the price, the Legion Go 2 is a solid handheld for AAA titles and indies alike. And with that, I hope that revisiting the Legion Go 2 was as helpful for you as it was for us. But as always, we want to know what you think. If you have a Legion Go 2, what tips would you share for a better user experience? What's something that you wish that you knew before buying one? And what features would you like to see Lenovo update in their next iterations? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you liked this video or you learned something from it, we'd love it if you'd hit those like, subscribe, and notification bell buttons. We have a lot more content like this coming here at Robeytech, Robeytech Live, and all over your favorite social media platforms. And hey, if you have a question or you want to talk about this video, hop into the Discord at discord.gg/Robeytech. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.